Chris, are you out there? Are you out there?
I'm here.
Hey,
Hello,
Chris is
everybody.
joining us again.
Chris, come in.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Just ignore Greg. He's just messing with you.
I don't hear Chris. I don't hear
The
Chris.
jokester.
Well, it's a smaller one because
Right.
they're kind of a new coming station. They're just kind of putting things together. But anyway, he's rolling his chair to roll some tape and do some graphics, and then rolling back, switching the cameras. And this guy's doing it all by himself, not just walking and I'm watching. He finally looks at me, probably wondering, who the heck is this? I go, hey, do you need some help?
For me, I'm more of like the front end of it.
I'm just making it up. Of a similar nature or character.
JMKast. JMKast.
But we get shocked often by Chris.
If you Google my name, it always pulls up Ric Flair and Blackjack Mulligan. That's another story for another time, though.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Hey, Rick. What are you doing over there?
I'm sitting here waiting for this intro music to stop talking so that I can say
Well,
hi.
it already stopped.
Well, I know.
That's why I
wait
went,
for you.
whoa.
I can't see the numbers, so I have to pay attention to when.
Chris, are you out there? Are you out there?
I'm here.
Hey,
Hello,
Chris is
everybody.
joining us again.
Chris, come in.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Just ignore Greg. He's just messing with you.
I don't hear Chris. I don't
The
hear Chris.
jokester.
Hey, so word of the day.
Word of the day. I don't know. What is it?
Render.
Render. Render.
I mean, I figure we talked about it before.
Hurry up and
so,
wait.
Yeah.
Can we call it hurry up and wait?
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about it with Chris last week, and
Yeah.
he was talking about how his computer used to take like 3 hours to render before we got the new one, and people are probably like, "Render? What is render?" And no, it's not a character in
Futurama.
Yeah, Futurama. That's a bender. But
Rendering's easy.
rendering, yes,
It's the most boring part.
it is. It's when you push the little button
And go to the bathroom and
make
do
it-
other things for 45 minutes.
Wait for your project to render out.
And there's nothing worse than when there's a mistake and you have to do it again.
Yes, but it's the process when all the material kind of like the computer takes it and
Yeah.
does its thing and turns it into a single file, mixes all the audio, all the video, all the graphics, and turns it into that one little special file. Could be an MP4, could be
Yeah, whatever.
a WAV file, could be. I mean, there's so many different types of files you can make.
Yeah. I mean, I was funny because I'll look at the render sometimes and I'll be like, oh, 3 minutes. And I'll be like, okay, I can go to the bathroom and come back and it'll be done. And I'll be like, there's no way I was gone 3 minutes. Or you'll come back sometimes and it'll say 3 hours and you're like, something's wrong. This shouldn't be taking 3 hours. Then you realize you left a bunch of black at the end of the thing or something.
Well, my favorite is when it says 3 hours and then 10 minutes later it's done.
yeah.
And you're like, how did it 3 hours turn into 10 minutes? Like, what did I miss?
Chris did that to me a couple weeks ago. He sent me one that had like 5 minutes of black on the back end of it. I don't think I told him about it because I'm like, oh, I gotta put something on this anyway. So the one of the ones you sent me had a bunch of black on the end of it.
You've done
Nice.
a few times on the
I'm really good at
Dana.
it.
Yeah, I think there was like an hour of black one time. I was
Well,
sitting there
usually
going,
what happened is I
"Holy
probably was
cow."
moving stuff around and didn't realize
Yeah, but
it was there.
what was way out? I guess you just had a edit point, or
My
there
guess
was
is I
like a little
duplicate-
tiny.
I'll bet any money
file
I
or something.
duplicated the timeline.
Yeah.
I probably had duplicates of the timeline and deleted everything else except I just missed something. That happens.
Of course, my favorite's when the black's in the middle of the project.
That happens once or twice.
Or even better when it's just it's supposed to be a talk show and like the wide shot is
Well, hang
the
on.
only shot.
But the
that's
host
like,
does talk a lot.
Oh yeah, but like, I mean, when the wide shot you're at 30 minutes and you're still waiting for the camera to change.
We had one the other day while we were shooting it live.
We have a switcher.
Harvey was directing, and I literally looked at him and I go, change the shot. I whispered it to him and he goes, what? He goes, he's the only one talking. I go, you can't sit on him for 5 minutes, dude. Go to the wide shot a couple times.
I would tell him that all the time.
Gotta change it. I mean, I get it. Dana doesn't. He talks very long,
But you gotta change it up.
Yeah, you got other options.
And it's not. You got to do it just to kind of keep the audience involved.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
Got to give it some sort of action. Isn't that right, Chris?
Yeah, and I always thought it was interesting working in news and the director and all the different cameras, and you're reading a script and okay, roll this tape, and it just seemed like it was a lot to try and handle and process, but it was very interesting to me. I never did it, but it was always seemed something like it would be, you'd have to, I guess, be able to concentrate on a lot of different things
I
at
don't know how
once.
directors do that. I do not know how directors sit there with 8,000 monitors in front of them and literally 1,000 buttons
Yeah.
and know the right sequence. I just don't get it. And now it's only one person doing it too.
So,
Like it used to be in control room, there's like 8 people. Now there's down to 1. And it's like, it just baffles me like how they do that.
So I want to tell you something, Rick. Chris may know, but I don't know if Chris may not remember. Rick, I don't even know if I've told you this story myself. But so one of my jobs, I was still when I was still in college, I wanted to get a job, but I wanted to be working kind of in the business already. So during a break, I don't know, it was Thanksgiving break or whatever
I think
it was.
you have told me this.
I went to the Las Colinas Film Complex.
You told me this.
And I went door to door, handing my resume around
you told me
to
that.
like Panavision, to like all the different things. But one of them, there was some call letters that said KMPX, and I walked in there, and it was the oddest thing. I walked in, I hear like it sounded like music and like a variety show or something going on, but I'm hearing it from upstairs. So when you walked into the lobby, this is pre 9/11, this is the 90s. So I just walk in the door, nobody's in there. There's the stairs, and there's another door that looks like it kind of goes to what maybe a studio. I'm like, I probably don't want to go in the studio.
Right.
But I walked upstairs where I heard people and things happening, and I walked up. There's a guy with headphones, and he's sitting at what looks like a switcher and like a
It looks
laid
like
out
NASA
like
control,
a little
NASA
control, but
mission control.
It's a smaller one because
Right.
they're the kind of a new coming station. They're just kind of putting things together. But anyway, he's rolling his chair to roll some tape and do some graphics, and then rolling back, switching the cameras, and this guy's doing it all by himself. And I just walk in and I'm watching. He finally looks at me, probably wondering, who the heck is this? I go, hey, do you need some help? I mean, can you imagine? I'm like, hey,
Random guy.
you need
number
some
one.
guy. A random guy walks up, and he's like, well, do you know what you know any of this? I'm like, yeah, I think I can figure it out. So I sit down and I start doing some like basic things. He
That's
tells me the button to push and this and that, and I help him out. So we get to the end of the show, and he goes, I go, I'm looking for a job. He goes, oh, well, we need some people. And he says, can you start Monday? I think this was like a Friday or something. Right. He was like, yeah. So I came back, and they were doing a Mexican variety show that they just happened to air at that time, because it was actually a Christian radio or television station.
Oh, okay.
And but they would sell this 1 hour to this other media group that would do this variety Mexican show.
Got to keep the TV on the air somehow.
So that was one of the shows that they would do on a regular basis every day, Monday through Friday. But I was sitting there, and that's how I got my job in there. But why this story came up is because, you were talking about being there in front of all those screens and how you do it. Well, what it turned into later was, like I said, as a Christian station, and they did a 2-hour live broadcast with a music, like it had like multiple sets, like 4 or 5 sets.
Oh, wow.
2-hour live broadcast every night. And they would go from a song set to a talk show set to a prayer set to a telethon set sometimes. I mean, all over the place. 6 cameras. I had to tell the cameras to like,
were they robotic cameras or people?
People, all manned by people.
Well, yeah,
you had to like
90s,
floor director, and you're like, go to the other set, start getting ahead, and you had to lay kind of lay out.
You have it's pre-laid out, so you know when to move.
Yeah, so, but I mean, not as laid out as you would think.
Right.
You kind of had to go fly by the seat of your pants based on the main host and what he's leading. You usually knew music because you could see the the person who was going to sing go up to the song set where there was a piano, and we'd get the crane in place and do all that.
Oh, wow.
But I wasn't the main director, but time to time the director just didn't feel like. I guess
he didn't want to do his job.
No, I don't think it's that. I think he knew I could handle it, and he wanted to let me do it. So I would.
He's like, smoke break.
Yeah, and I would direct this 2-hour live broadcast.
Wow.
Time to time, and
That's great.
I mean, not many people know that I did that, but and then it became what is now known as Daystar. If you've heard of Daystar,
okay,
it was Marcus and Joni when they first started their TV station, like in the very, very beginning.
That's crazy.
Because I remember when I told them I was going to leave to work for this production company, they were they were upset. Like emotionally,
right?
They wanted me to stay. They really liked me because I brought in some other shows, and I would create these elaborate opens and things that I would do them at school, like or whatever. And
they lost your talent more than anything.
Yeah, and and again, but just in telling you who they were, and knowing they built this huge complex that their stuff now is probably nicer or nicer than what Channel 8 was using, because and they were winning Emmys and stuff just like Channel 8.
Wow, that's crazy.
In the last many years, but I was there in the very, very, very beginning.
Wow. Yeah, directing. I never had that attention to detail. You have to have such an attention to detail for that.
You just have to be ahead of you kind of have to be ahead of it.
And it's I think the thing for me that would be the hardest, it would be when if the train was coming off the tracks, being able to like, one, see it, or two, adapt when it happens. Because like I work at 8 all the time, and I would, I could hear the control room. We'd always have the little soundboard where we could talk and hear the control room, and I would just hear them start, screaming and yelling about things and different things, and I would just be like, "Oh, train's coming off the tracks," and then you watch what's on the air, and you don't see it because they're so damn good at what they do.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
There was times where, like, you said the train's coming off the tracks, but for me, there was a lady we worked with at KBB. Her name was Carrie, and she would always say, the ship's going down. And so sometimes it does go on air, because sometimes they would call me fingers. I'd be rolling tapes during the newscast, and I accidentally eject a tape while it's going on the air. Right.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie, man. When it was hitting the fan, I would just sit back and laugh. And the other editors would always look at me and just be like, "Uh-oh, we burning down?" I'm like, "Yep, it is hitting the fan." And it was because I was at that point, I was just tired. It was just like, to me, it was funny. And I never wanted to cause the mayhem. Like, I never wanted to cause more work for somebody else or anything like that. But man, when someone screwed something up and it affected other people and the mayhem was going down, I would just giggle. I'd be like, "Oh, I'm glad that ain't me." Yeah. But I was always an editor, so I never really shy of putting profanity on the air or something like that, which was always the biggest no. It's like, just make sure you don't, sometimes you get field tapes where someone says something, or they have you pull something from the internet, which was always my biggest gripe with morning news. Is morning news has become the YouTube newscast now, where it's like, pull it from YouTube, pull it from YouTube, pull it from YouTube. I'm like, really? Like, you can't, really? And it's like, why are we pulling this from YouTube? And that, most of my morning was recording stuff from YouTube, and drove me nuts, because I'm like, that's not, who cares? That's not the job.
But you can see now when Harvey's trying to tell me how to direct a show, I'm kind of like,
that makes sense. I have no problem with I when we do the podcasts, those are easy. I can handle those because it's 4 buttons, maybe 5.
Sometimes we're running 6 cameras.
But I'm not running graphics. I'm not running, it's just switching cameras. There's no now at some point we are going to add the graphic element into that, and we will be able to do that. And I think we should, because it'll make our life easier on the back end. But when I look at it now, I'm just like, I can handle plugging in 4 cameras and hitting 4 buttons. The biggest gripe is, camera 1 went down while we were on it. Got to edit that, because our show is edited. So
right. So you were saying you wanted to talk about maybe what is your, it's not dream job, because business owners are pretty. I love my job. That's a cool job.
That's why I put it as
but when you say job, you mean job with a client,
job, project, or client. Those kind of go together. So what would be the one thing where if person A knocked on your door and said, I want to work with you, where you would afterwards close the door and just literally be like a little schoolgirl jumping up and down excited?
I mean, Steven Spielberg would walk up, knock on the door, and say, "My next big movie
is the Greg T. Johnson story."
Well, I don't want the story about me. I want to be the one to get to put it together.
Oh, okay. You're the edit the Jurassic Park 96.
Yeah, let me shoot it, let me direct it, let me help produce it, let me be in the editing process. Because, I mean, think of all the different editing processes that are in movies as compared to what we do.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The amount of names and credits are astronomical.
What about you, Chris?
What's your dream client, project, job?
I think for me, it wouldn't be a specific company or client. I think it would be the type of project, one where there's a lot of emotion involved. It's emotional. Either someone in an interview is shedding a tear, just getting people that when they watch it, they feel that same emotion. That's the type of projects I like.
Well, I mean, you tie into something that I want to talk about someday, just in general, which is people ask me all the time, what makes a good story or what makes a good video. It's creating emotion.
Make them laugh or make them cry.
Yeah.
You can do those two things.
If you can somehow make people feel something, that's the words to me.
If you can make somebody laugh hard, and I mean laugh, not just, oh, that's cute. I mean laugh, or they literally afterwards are fighting, choking back a tear, you've done your job.
Right.
You've done your job so well that you can't even.
Which is hard to do in the corporate
very hard
environment, because a lot of times you're talking about processes or things that they do or what. But every once in a while you do like a veteran story or
we do the
Memorial Day.
We do the ERGs with one of the companies where one of the women started to talk about something and got extremely emotional, and those things, when those happen, you're like, okay, this is a golden moment. What can we do with it?
Yeah, and how do I fit it into to what I have?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just in general, I mean, yeah, you always want those emotional moments, Chris, for sure.
Right.
So what about you, Rick?
I would love to do a long form documentary or something. I have two kind of dream projects, I guess. I would love to do something that is a documentary style, talking about, and I don't have a specific case, but finding something where kids were missing or people were missing and their stories kind of untold, and do one of those long form things or something like that. I don't know. I don't have a specific example, or something to do with being from Detroit. But it doesn't matter here as much, but I'd love to do something with the Red Wings, but that's just on a personal.
Well, I was going to say his number one project was to direct or video or anything to do with the Detroit Red Wings in a Stanley Cup moment.
Almost was in the locker room for a cup once, but I missed it. But if you gave me and said we could do it, and it was financed tomorrow, I would do a documentary on the entire 1990 to 2010.
His second favorite thing would be going to the Big Ten championship, watching Ohio State win the championship.
I quit. I don't want to do the show anymore. I'd rather wipe my butt with sandpaper than watch Ohio State.
At Ohio State.
No,
he would be.
I'll never go there.
He would actually be there.
I'll never go there.
That's his second dream.
Right.
This joke's gonna get old. Go blue. That's all I have to say. Go blue.
Go blue.
Go blue.
You mean
first day of training camp today?
From from
Michigan. Go blue. Not a dog. Go blue.
Oh, go blue. I thought you meant old school.
No. Oh, yeah, that works too, my boy Blue. That works too. But no, go blue.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, first day of training camp. Starts today.
So I was totally kidding.
No, yeah.
On what I mean. Well, actually, I wasn't kidding. I would totally love that if Steven Spielberg was knocking on my door and asked me to do that. That's not my dream. My dream is to produce some sort of TV series, a docu-series,
that'd be awesome.
Or kind of some stuff that I was sort of working on already.
Yeah.
And who knows,
That'll happen.
In our role now, we could produce things and actually.
Ultimately, I have one that I want us to work on. I do have one that I want us to put.
And we have equipment. Also, we in time. We just got to figure out people to get it out there when we do it.
I have someone else. It's someone else's idea, so I would never do that without them being involved. But I have one, and I think it would be something that, with them involved, would be an awesome project. And I think it'd be kind of cool to do. But we'll see. I like Chris's though. Make them laugh or make them cry. Put that. Have them be emotional. It's definitely a good way to do those things.
Yeah.
So Chris.
Yes.
We were talking the other day, on the phone, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And we were, kind of letting some frustration out, I guess, a little bit. But I was having a discussion with you about the first version of an edit. And someone told me once is when I started doing video work for corporate clients, is that the first version, that's always your baby. Love it, care for it, and then put it away and just know that you did it. But then it's going to go back to the client, and then they ultimately get to do what they envisioned, or there's so many other players involved when you do a corporate video. So what were your feelings about that?
With this last edit.
Well, I mean, just an edit.
The blow up process. Everyone knows it's going to happen sometimes.
Yeah, I mean,
not
sometimes
you don't ever get it.
Yeah, sometimes you do the video. Everyone loves it, but they're like, "Yeah, that's not what we wanted."
Or they love it and they're like, "We're just going to make one tweak," and then that's the dream. Your dream is, "Oh, we're just going to make one tweak."
Yeah.
But it's when when the bomb drops and you're like, "Oh, I just spent 10 hours on that." I don't want to.
If it's, mistakes that I made that, hey, there's a black flash, the audio isn't right here, you misspelled something, those are totally understandable. But then there's times where you put a lot of thought into making this piece stand out or be at least what you think is unique, and then they don't want any of it. And over time, over the last couple of years of working with y'all, I've gotten used to the idea that even though I don't like it, I think at some companies, there's probably too many people having an input into what, and everyone has an opinion, and their opinion isn't wrong, but the way I did it isn't wrong. So for me, it's frustrating when I put a lot of effort for them to just say, no.
And that's why I tell you, just remember your first version. It's your baby. You love it, care for it, and then you just have to let it go into the world, and it is what it is.
My biggest reason I don't like music is because I try to edit to music, and someone at the end goes, "We don't like the music," and then I'm like, "Oh, I have to blow it all up." That's my biggest gripe with music.
Yeah, because if they change the music, then you edit a lot of times to the music, and then the next music might be not even work with kind of the style you edited the piece on.
Now, I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
You're good.
How do you? Because you, both you and Greg, both of y'all deal with the clients. I don't have any direct contact. So, for me, my thing is, and I would want to tell them obviously in a respectable, professional manner, but basically saying y'all are trusting us, and we have the experience. Trust the decisions that we're making, unless it's specific errors that we've made. Trust what you're paying us to do. They don't
that doesn't
have the
work.
experience
I'd love to
in
say
putting
that works,
videos.
but it doesn't.
Yeah. So do you ever try? Have you tried?
No, because I might try to massage it.
That's not true.
You do it more than I do.
Sometimes we do say something, and the person you're directly dealing with agrees with you. Yeah. Agrees with you wholeheartedly, but there's 2 or 3 other people on the other side of them that don't agree. So
I think we've learned who we're dealing with, and we know who we can make those pitches to. But if someone says I don't like it, I usually just say okay, and I make the adjustment, just because in some situations I don't want to rock that boat. I don't want to make that client angry. I don't want to frustrate them. I would rather just be like, cool, we can make those adjustments.
I mean, if you think about it, in the end, even if it wasn't the video that you're the most passionate about because of the way it ended up, you're still doing you're doing more than likely a really good video. It's solid, it's
Right.
clean, it's,
Yeah.
you're not like putting something out in the world that is bad either
Right.
way.
And
It's
it-
just
and
not,
it's not-
what your vision was, but
Right.
your vision isn't necessarily the right vision ever.
Yeah.
Like in
And you took-
anything.
Yeah. And theirs
Yeah,
might not
you
be the right
took
vision
exactly. Yeah,
So
that's exactly.
we can agree to disagree on all the visions.
either. Well, I mean,
Right.
it's the thing is, like, with most of our projects, it's very rare that a client says we want it to look exactly like this. Now, we have been sent examples where they say we need to mimic this. And we have to do that. We have to mimic that video. Like, we have to do our best. And if they say, shot A needs to be this, shot B needs to be this, shot C needs, that's what it has to be. And that's fine. I actually prefer that sometimes, because then we're not wasting time having to go back and rework everything. I don't like it financially. I like it, but I don't like the time spent of, I just spent 10 hours doing this. I now have to go back and spend 9 hours fixing it. I don't like that. I love charging that. Sure. That's fine. But time wise, I don't want to do that. If that makes sense.
So everyone's kind of like talked about their processes.
Yeah.
I mean, so I was going to, this is one of the processes I don't like.
Which is
So I don't, and it's not really a process. It's when someone comes up to me and goes, okay, so we've got this really big thing coming up, and I need the most creative thing that you possibly could think of without any warning, or like on the spot. What would you do?
yeah. Tell me
And
the
I'm
most
like,
creative
I'm
thing
like,
now.
and then I had one recently too, was like, okay, so you're familiar with David Letterman's top 10, you're familiar with all these different people's iconic things they use in their talk shows. Come up with something iconic now. I'm like,
You give me an hour, I can
I'm
do
like,
that.
I was like, I mean, I'm creative, but
That's a different kind
come on, give me a day.
Yeah, that's a different kind of.
Give me a give me a day to at least process
Let me
it.
brainstorm some options here.
Like, yeah, I mean, just give me a day, give me a minute. But I mean, I can come up with something if I have to. If I absolutely have to come up with something, it's going to be creative. Is it the most creative? Is it the most iconic? I don't know about that, but I can come up with something.
I mean, do we think Letterman's top 10 was literally developed overnight?
Well,
I bet
I mean,
it wasn't. I bet it had to be
well,
developed over
he
time.
didn't do it when he started.
That's what I'm
the
saying.
talk
Like, it had to be
show.
developed over time.
Well, that's one of the things I was trying
Yeah.
to tell the particular person, that was that that show had
I
been,
love that person, though. She's awesome.
yeah,
That person's awesome.
but still, I'll just find it interesting. It's like, I mean, I'm creative, but
yeah.
and thank you for thinking that I can just come up with stuff like that on the spot, but
Most of that stuff becomes, though.
Yeah,
like
it happens.
You
It
can't
happens.
force. It's so rare that you do something and instantly go, that's going to be iconic. It just doesn't. It either is or it isn't. Like when you ask people when they're making movies, hey, did you know when you were making Rounders that it was going to be the pinnacle poker movie of all time? Matt Damon's literally like, no, we thought we were making a poker movie. We didn't realize it would be what it became. You
I
ask
memorized
people,
my lines.
yeah, I made sure that I said the stuff right, but it's like, you don't know that it's going to be that movie. Like if you ask Kevin Smith, did he know Clerks was going to be what it was when he made it? No.
Pay that man his money.
You beat me, fat and square. Pay that man his money.
Have you seen any movies lately, Chris?
I saw, well, with my kids, we just saw the Minions movie.
That's all right.
Yeah. How was it?
It was good. I liked it better than the last one that came out.
So when you see a movie, can you unattach yourself from what you do for a living?
No, it's hard.
Oh, it's so hard.
See, you and
there's
Rick are
times-
both no's. I'm a yes.
Thor infuriated me.
I'm a yes because I use movies to escape
No.
So I try to. I mean, granted, when I see a bad movie, sometimes, and I'm gonna say sometimes, I know it's a bad movie. But there's plenty of movies I know lots of people hate that I really enjoyed.
I can't stand continuity issues, and I can't stand bad edits. They drive me up. And Thor has a ton of them. Martin Scorsese has a comment in The Departed, which if you've ever seen The Departed is great. The Departed has continuity errors throughout it, and it has music that does weird things throughout it. And Martin Scorsese goes, I don't care. It's how I'm telling the story. And I'm like, yeah, but you have Leonardo's got the cigarette in his mouth in this shot, and then you cut to a different angle, and he doesn't even have a cigarette in his hand. He goes, I don't care. I wanted the best take. It's like, yeah, but at least have the cigarette in his mouth. Like things.
Didn't it win an Oscar?
It did.
For Best Picture?
It did. It did not win Best Editing though. It did not win an editing award. But it's like, and he slams
and
music.
The bad thing is
slams
the
music.
poor editor was probably forced to do that.
100% he was.
Yep.
But I can't. And another one is the movie Empire Records. There's a scene where the girls are sitting at a table having a pizza. Pizza appears and disappears. Glasses appear and disappear. Bra appears and disappears. Character appears and disappears. Like, it drives me nuts to watch that scene in that movie because the editor in me is like, but I realized what happened. They shot it poorly, and he had to use the best takes that he had, and that's just what happens. And evidently I'm being played off like an Oscar.
Hey, comment, subscribe, like, do all that fun stuff. We only have a few
Thanks for
seconds
joining
there.
us.
But we'll pick up this conversation about movies and editing, and can we attack ourselves or unattack?
Never.
Bye.
Later.